Hey everyone, I hope you're having fun with the new patch. We got a bunch of Arcana changes and they're really great. And I've been having fun looking through some of the changes. I wanted to make this video today to talk about the new 3 Ruin skill build and its rotation. I want to focus on the small things that I've learned that have helped me use this build a little bit more smoothly and understand how the new skills get put together. All of this is early testing for me. It's just been what I've found to have improved my output a little bit. So without further ado, let's jump straight in because we have a lot to talk about. First off, I'd like to just quickly clarify what the build actually is. And this is what I'm running with, okay? You can have some variation of this build. It's centered around Raid Captain. Obviously, if you're using Barricade, some of your decision making is not very different because you don't have to manage your movement speed buff as compared to last patch. So if you're using Barricade last patch and you're using Barricade now, much of this you won't have to think about. But if you're using the new Raid Captain build, so if you see my engravings that I have here, I have Raid Captain, and I have Empress 1, Adrenaline 2. Now you could have Empress 3, that's fine, it won't really change anything. I'm mostly talking about Raid Captain, and then as for the skills, as far as the skills are concerned, what we're talking about is 4 of a kind with these tripods, Swift Prep, Card Enhancement, Full House, Call of Destiny with Dark Destiny and Fake Flip, and then the new skill Dealer's Flip with Excellent Mobility, Card Draw, and Combo Flip. So all put together, we have Call of Destiny and Return, and then we have our 3 Ruin skills, Garden, Celestial Rain, and 4 of a kind. And then we have our 3 stacking skills, Spiral Edge, Scratch Dealer, and then the new skill Dealer's Flip. So with that, let's start from the top. There's a lot that I want to get through today, so I'm going to try to keep it as concise as I can. The first thing that I want to do is paint you a picture about how we're playing with Raid Captain, kind of talking about it without thinking about the cards involved. We're just talking about the base rotation that you're going to be going for. Now remember, these are only general rules of thumb, okay? There are extenuating circumstances for all of this stuff, so depending on how the fight is playing out and what the practical situations are, these things might not be true, but these have given me success in general. When we're handling the fact that we now have 4 stacking skills because Call of Destiny, due to its tripod, is now acting like a stack skill, there are a few details that I want to kind of think about to help me keep my rotation organized. 1, we're pairing Scratch Dealer and Dealer's Flip with Call of Destiny. 2, in general, Spiral Edge leading into Return Rain seems to be a very comfortable combo. Finally, sometimes, especially when you're in Magic Addiction and your cooldowns are long, letting your stacking skills drift is not the worst idea to make sure you don't corner yourself with too many stacks, but you don't have the movement speed or you don't have a way to access your crit damage. We'll talk more about that later, but this is really important and an issue that I found while parsing a lot today with the new 3 Ruin skill build. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the fact that we're adapting to now having 2 crit damage buffs. That would be Call of Destiny, gives us a crit damage buff for 3 seconds, and then Return gives us a crit damage buff for 5 seconds. Here's a breakdown of how I'm understanding it. Secret Garden's cooldown, obviously, as we should know if we're all playing Arcana. Empress Arcana, I mean. Secret Garden's cooldown is much lower than Celestial Rain. Return's cooldown is somewhat similar to Celestial Rain, and so what we're going to do is we're going to pair Call of Destiny with Secret Garden. Okay, wonderful. I found that I have a typo. Okay, in general, we're going to pair Call of Destiny with Garden, and then Return goes with Rain and Garden. So like before, our Return buff window has 2 Ruin skills in them. Usually it's going to be Rain and Garden, and then sometimes it's going to be Rain and 4 of a kind. And then when we're activating our crit damage buff with Call of Destiny, that's usually just going to be paired with Secret Garden, and then sometimes it's going to be paired with 4 of a kind. Again, remember, general rule of thumb, okay? Usually, when Rain is down after we do a Return combo, there's a period of time where we just have Secret Garden coming back up because its cooldown is much faster. That's the point in time where we want to be using Scratch Dealer or Dealer's Flip, and then we use Call of Destiny, and then we go into Garden. Thinking about it this way helps. If you use Return to get your crit damage, this is the best when you have full stacks. Because if you already have stacks and you use Call of Destiny to get your crit damage buff, you're overcapping on your stacks, which makes it inefficient. However, if you're building up to full stacks, Call of Destiny is really good because it'll give you the stacks and give you the crit damage. And so if you use something like Scratch Dealer, Call of Destiny, then you have 4 stacks and you have your crit damage buff ready to go. However, If you're already at 4 stacks, it can be awkward to use Call of Destiny because then you're building up to 6 stacks, which doesn't exist in the game, and then you're just wasting the 2 stacks from Call of Destiny. Okay, main point 3, correctly placing your movement speed buffs. The big thing to remember here is that there are 2 long duration movement speed buffs that you have. That's Scratch Dealer 3 when you use a safety device, and then Dealer's Flip, when you use Dealer's Flip and you have the tripod applied, you get movement speed for a long duration. Both these are about, I think Scratch Dealer's is like 4 seconds, and then Dealer's Flip I think goes up to 5 seconds. It's really important that you try to level these up to max level for your tripods. Spiral Edge is really, really good, but the buff only lasts 2 seconds, so be careful about it. You need to make sure that you use the Ruin skill soon after you use Spiral Edge, otherwise you risk dropping the movement speed buff. A big thing to know is that your movement speed buffs are only accessible through stacking skills, and so if you don't organize well, you can kind of back yourself into a corner where you already have full stacks, but you don't have your movement speed buff. This can often happen in practical situations where if you're stacking up on a boss and you get to 4 stacks and the boss jumps away, the next time the boss comes down, you probably won't have your movement speed buff, but you'll still have the stacks remaining on them. This can be kind of a sticky situation to find yourself in, but it's important to know that your movement speed buffs are all associated with your stacking skills. For this reason, sometimes drifting your stacking skills can be really good if you don't have ruin skills available, because you want to be efficient with both your stacks and the buffs that you're given. If you drift your stacking skills and wait until a ruin skill is ready, then you don't need to time out your movement speed buff because you can immediately use the ruin skill after you're done using your stacking skills. Okay, I'm going to do an example minute-long rotation now to kind of put it all together for you guys. And then we're going to talk about it a little bit. I'm going to remove the notepad for a second here, and then we're going to talk about it a little bit and talk about some of the things that we observe. Okay, so that's what an example rotation looks like. It's not too bad, but as you can see, there's still a lot of things for me to work out. I still feel like it can get a little bit messy, especially once you start getting things like three-headed dragon or three-headed snake or balance cards that can really kind of like throw off the math for your stacking skills. I'm finding typos. I typed this up in a rush. Call of Destiny here. Remember, if it gets crazy, we can always realign by using the general pairing rule of Spiral Edge into Return Rain combo, or Scratch Dealer, Dealer's Flip into Call of Destiny into Garden. In an emergency situation, given that we have 4 stacking skills, and especially when we have Moon and Boundless and our cooldowns are super duper short, don't be afraid to like proc buffs before you use your ruin skills, especially if it's going to line up everything down the road really, really well. because when we are in this state, our cooldowns are super duper low, so it's not that big of a deal. So I want to talk about Four of a Kind a little bit. It's one of the newest skills in our toolkit, and it's one of the more unique skills. So first of all, Four of a Kind is a lower damage ruin skill. It does not do as much as your Secret Garden or as your Celestial Rain, but it is definitely more consistent than Serendipity, and it is worth pairing with a crit damage buff because it has a lot of crit rate on it. The big thing about Four of a Kind is that we need to let it shine when we're doing judgment combos, okay? So usually if you have a judgment card, you want to be saving it for a scenario where Four of a Kind is ready to go. Now let me talk to you about Four of a Kind a little bit. I'm gonna take off this notepad so we can take a look at the skill. Now for Four of a Kind, we have this tripod here, Swift Preparation, and it says it has a 55% chance to reset its cooldown. Now this is obviously very, very useful when we have Judgment because we don't need to restack our stacks before we can use Four of a Kind again. So theoretically, in that 4-second window, Four of a Kind can just continue to reset itself and we can continue to just get free damage using Four of a Kind over and over and over and over again. However, there are a few issues with this, right? Four of a Kind doesn't do the most damage, so we need to remember to use Celestial Rain and Secret Garden while this is happening. And then there's the executional aspect of it, where we have to kind of like see if Four of a Kind has actually reset before we go back and press it again. Luckily, there's a way that you guys can organize how you execute judgment combos to kind of get rid of the reaction aspect to this. So what I recommend you guys do is when you start your judgment combo, you press Four of a Kind, then you immediately go towards Rain without looking to see if it resets. And then, while the Rain is happening, you can see if your Four of a Kind reset, and if it did, you can press Four of a Kind again, and then immediately press Garden. And then similarly, while your Secret Garden is happening, you can see if your Four of a Kind resets, and if it did, then you press Four of a Kind. At this point, you don't have Rain, you don't have Garden. The only thing you can do now is Four of a Kind, so at this point, you just keep pressing Four of a Kind, you just keep spamming the button until your Judgment card runs out. Now, there are two benefits of pressing your hotkeys in this way. One, even if your Four of a Kind didn't reset and you still press the hotkeys this way, so for example, on my hotkey setup, you'll notice that Four of a Kind is on A and Celestial Rain is on R. Now imagine if I pressed A and then I started spamming R as such, right? I pressed A and then I started spamming R. While Celestial Rain finishes, and I'll show it here on screen, I press A and then I spam E, okay? What happens is, if Four of a Kind has reset, then I'll use Four of a Kind before I use Secret Garden. And if it hasn't reset, I'll immediately just go to Secret Garden. So I'm gonna press the same hotkeys, right? I'm gonna press A and then I'm gonna spam R. And then when Celestial Rain's animation is about to end, I'm gonna press A and then I'm gonna spam E, okay? So A, R, I'm pressing A and then E. Now obviously, Four of a Kind reset twice. So let's try an example where Four of a Kind doesn't reset. A, R, AE. Because Four of a Kind was on cooldown, Secret Garden ended up coming out. Now this is if you absolutely feel like you cannot react. Realistically, during the duration of your Celestial Rain animation, you're going to be able to see if Four of a Kind has reset. So again, I'm pressing AR, AE. Now, depending on how your skills line up, you can obviously do it in the other direction, right? Let's say your combo is coming up, but your Secret Garden is off cooldown and your Celestial Rain is like 1 second away from being off cooldown. You can do the same combo the opposite direction. You can press Four of a Kind, Garden, Four of a Kind, Rain, and then Four of a Kind, Four of a Kind, Four of a Kind. The last thing that I want to say about Four of a Kind is you can movement cancel the animation of Four of a Kind. And you absolutely should be doing this if you're using Four of a Kind back to back. Let me demonstrate. So I'm going here and I'm going to turn off the cooldowns. And I'm going to show you what it's like to use Four of a Kind without the animation canceled back to back, okay? So this is a situation where we're doing our Judgment combo and Secret Garden is on cooldown and Celestial Rain is on cooldown because we've already used them, so we're just using Four of a Kind now. This is Four of a Kind without the animation cancel. And I want you to notice the speed that Four of a Kind is casting, okay? Look at the time in between. Okay, now I'm going to do Four of a Kind with the animation cancel, okay? Now you guys can rewind the video and compare the two and see how much faster the animation cancel is. This is super duper duper important because the window of time for judgment is very, very short, and it can be the difference between you only getting one initial four of a kind to, depending on your attack speed, getting up to 3 four of a kinds at the tail end of your judgment, making your damage go insanely high. So make sure you're animation canceling. How do you do this? Well, it's very, very easy. So for me, my right click is my movement key, right? If I hold down my right click, my character moves around. And all you have to do is hold down right click and spam your 4 of a kind hotkey. So in my case, it's A. So I'm just gonna hold down my right click and spam A. And this is a faster speed, okay? Again, I'm gonna show you, without holding down right click, I'm gonna show you without the animation cancel, the speed at which 4 of a kind goes, okay? And then now with the animation cancel, I'm holding down right click and spamming A. So when you're doing judgment combos, remember this. By the time you get to the point where you're only casting 4 of a kind, remember to hold down your movement key and spam the 4 of a kind hotkey. Okay, really quickly, about the opener that I'm using now. Now that I have Raid Captain instead of Barricade, there's a few things that you should note about the opener. You don't have to layer your Celestial Rain on top of the Awakening cast. You can actually wait to make sure you get the 4 stacks of damage, because it's no longer about putting the protection rune up before the Awakening hits. It's more about just making sure you have the movement speed buff in general, and then making sure you get at least 2 rune skills in the return after the Awakening hits. So let me show you what my Awakening combo looks like. And again, I have no idea if this is optimal. It's just what I do, and it works for me. Call of Destiny, backflush, return awaken, a spacebar, wait for it, Celestial Rain, spiral, guarded. So in this opener, this is a good example of what I'm talking about when I say you can drift your stacking skills to line up your buffs. When you do this opener, at least with my gems, with my tripods, and everything fitting in the way that my rotation fits in, there comes a point in time where I have no ruin skills, but I have stacking skills ready. But I don't want to use them immediately, because if I do, then I'm going to have stacks without movement speed buffs or without crit damage buffs. So let me show you that rotation in full again, and I'll highlight the point that I'm making about drifting your stacking skills. So again, on the game screen, we're going to go with this. We're going to use our Awakening, Spacebar, Rain. And then the next skill we're going to use is 4 of a kind here. Got the crit damage buff, 4 of a kind. And I can use my backflush, but none of my rune skills are ready. And now I got the crit damage as well. And I have the movement speed buff and the crit damage buff. So making sure little things like that are lining up can go a long way in cleaning up your rotation and making all your skills make sense and have them be organized. Finally, a small note about cards. Probably right now, the best thing to do is, say we draw something like Judgment, it's probably best that we hold the Judgment card for until we have a 2-card combo, and then we try to use those 2-card combos together. I need to learn a little bit more about this, but as of right now, this seems to be the best way forward. Since we're not using Quick Draw anymore, there's no chance of us drawing 2 cards back to back, so we don't ever like lose a card through RNG anymore, right? Which means that we can safely hold a card and then wait to see if we get a good 2-card combo and then spend appropriately. So in summary, Spiral Edge, Return, Rain, Garden. When your Rain is on cooldown and your Garden has come up, do things like Scratch Dealer, Dealer's Flip, Call of Destiny into Garden. Yeah, that in to make it clear. So Scratch Dealer, Dealer's Flip, Call of Destiny into Garden. This is filler when your Celestial Rain is on cooldown. Number 3, sometimes, especially Magic Addiction, drift your skills so that they line up better with the buffs that you need, with the stacks that you need, with the crit damage that you need, okay? And then number 4, make sure you have 4 of a kind ready before you use Judgment, because that's where your big damage is coming from. You're trying to RNG, reset the cooldown of 4 of a kind as you can, and then use the hotkey technique that I gave you, and make sure you're animation canceling with your movement. Okay, hopefully that was understandable. That's everything that I have so far. If you have any questions, make sure you ask in the comments section. Also, you can join my Discord. The description should have the link for the Discord there. This is obviously kind of like all new information coming in at once. There's a lot of Lost Ark to play, a lot of Arcana to learn. So hopefully you guys are having fun with it, and I'll see you guys in the next video.